And Ukrainian officials are assessing the damage done by a massive cyber attack on government servers. The U.S. has condemned the attack and vows to help with the investigation. The hack comes as Ukraine faces a potential invasion by Russia. Some Ukrainian officials feared this type of cyber attack prior to Russian military action. We want to bring in CBS News cybersecurity analyst Chris Krebs. He is also the former director of the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Thanks for joining us, Chris. What do we know about the full extent of this attack, and what are the next steps for investigators following this breach?
Well, hey, good afternoon. It looks like over the evening, a number of different ministries, departments, and agencies for Ukrainian governments were attacked. They had their websites, so their publicly facing websites were replaced with a message in Ukrainian as well as Polish. And so some of the early speculation, or at least what it was made to look as if it was potentially a Polish operation. But as it turns out, some of the translation was a little sloppy on that Polish, potentially from further east, including a Russian language translation, maybe using Google Translator, something like that. So what we may be seeing here is a false flag attack. It's quite a low effort, low level of sophistication type of activity that would, frankly, spend resources right now where the Ukrainian government has to investigate. They have to churn. It's before a weekend, and it could really create some chaos and confusion across the government as well as the Ukrainian people. And in fact, these are the sorts of things that I would expect if an adversary is trying to soften up a target a little bit.
Yeah. Well, do we know how the hackers were able to infiltrate those systems, and what preventative measures do most countries have in place to keep this type of thing from happening?
So it looks like whoever did this in the Ukrainian government is indicating that it's potentially the Russian security services, but it looks like they exploited a known vulnerability, so just a hole in a system for a content management system, and that's what's used to populate websites. And so they exploited that vulnerability, they got in there, and they put their own information up. And so what everyone should be doing, governments and private sector folks alike in Ukraine, as well as, I would suggest, in allied countries, including the United States, should really be taking a hard look at what your patch management process looks like and make sure that you've tackled some of those more commonly exploited vulnerabilities. And in my old agency, CISA has pushed out a good catalog of what those known vulnerabilities are. But look, this is just the beginning, I fear. I think decisions have been made in the Kremlin, and we will see an escalation, I would expect, over the next couple weeks, where not just kinetic, but everything up to the point of troops rolling across the border. And I would expect to see more cyber activity targeting Ukrainian government agencies, as well as their critical infrastructure, including energy, transportation, and probably most importantly, communications.
We should say we don't know for certain that Russia is behind this, but President Vladimir Putin is known for using hybrid tactics like attacking computer systems and energy grids prior to a ground assault. Is this type of cyber attack common for Russia? And if so, how might this hack be a pretext for a full-fledged invasion?
You're exactly right. This is in the playbook, the Kremlin playbook, as a pretext or preparation of the battlefield, so to speak. They did it in 2014, going into Crimea, and then they've used a similar sort of technique in Georgia, the country of Georgia, back in 2008, 2009. So we've seen this sort of activity before, but it is, again, this is low-level stuff. It's just the beginning. It's not really meant to destroy or create too much destruction. It is, I think, a psychological attack up front to confuse and have the Ukrainian government use their scarce resources. Again, I'd be looking for more disruption of services and critical infrastructure, in part to disrupt the ability to communicate and lose sight of what the adversary might be doing if they do, in fact, cross that border.
So at the same time that this is happening, in a rare cooperative effort, ironically, the U.S. and Russia have shut down the Russian hacking group REvil. So, I mean, what do you make of all that? What do you make of this joint operation? And why was the U.S. after this particular group?
I mean, ain't that some timing? It is quite convenient, right? And that's a lot of the speculation right now in both the Russian expert groups and the cybersecurity community, that this is a bit of kind of cyber gangster diplomacy where the Kremlin is indicating, hey, we can do some stuff together here. Don't worry about Ukraine. That's not your problem. That's ours. And so that could be part of it. But nonetheless, the REvil gang was a cyber criminal gang that made quite a bit of money this year. And they were behind that, some of the attacks, some of the larger ransomware attacks earlier this year. And you know, my sense is that this is a bit of a flex by the Kremlin to say, look, we control our own space. We can do what we want when we want to do it. And let's try to have a conversation and get along. But REvil did fly a little bit too close to the sun, perhaps. They were much more aggressive, you know, going after pipelines and things like that. And, you know, and they made a lot of money, and they were also compromised by U.S. law enforcement, according to reports. So I think they were expendable, and the FSB, which is the Russian law enforcement or domestic security service, rolled them up. And I think it's a pretty strong signal out of the Kremlin.
Strong signal. I'm sure we're going to see more of this in the future. But Chris Krebs, you get 2 big thumbs up for your use of gangster and that fabulous 10 of the kitchen you have behind you. Thanks so much for joining us.
All credit to my wife on that one.